Not Wanted is a social drama from 1949, and the directorial debut of Ida Lupino, a girl, played by Sally Forrest, with a less than stellar home life, falls in love with a musician, played by Penn. It's suggested they have sex, and then she runs away from home to pursue a relationship with him. However, he has no interest in seeing her anymore. After that, she finds out she's pregnant and must figure out what to do next. Yes, like I said before, this was Ida Lupino's directorial debut, but it wasn't originally meant to be. Lupino was a producer and co-writer for the project, but the directing duties were given to Elmer Clifton, who started directing films in the 1910s. 3 days into production, Clifton had a heart attack and couldn't work anymore, so Lupino stepped up, finished the film, and didn't take credit for it. She did it out of respect for Clifton. As many of you have already thought, this was a pretty taboo subject for the time. Anytime I see one of Lupino's films, I'm always shocked with how much they got past the censors. Content-wise, there's nothing super explicit, but thematically, it's very apparent what the film is trying to say. I'd say the strongest part of the film is its ability to create empathy for the lead. Lupino does a great job allowing the audience to understand the internal struggle of Forrest's character. From the moment she meets Penn, you just know it's a recipe for disaster, but you understand how Forrest could be so naive about the situation. He's unlike anyone else in the film in terms of his attitude and drive. He carries himself in a brooding manner that tells you he has some issues he's trying to overcome, similar to Forrest. It makes sense that someone like this would catch her eye, and that she'd think she'd have a real connection with him. And later in the film, she meets another guy, played by Keefe, Brasselle, who has an innocent charm that's clearly a better fit for Forrest, but her experience with Penn makes her more closed off. Not only do we understand why, but we kind of encourage Forrest to be more closed off. We don't know if this is just another wolf in a different kind of sheep's clothing. Many have praised the performances in this movie and often declare them as the strongest part. I agree with that, but I think Lupino's direction elevates all the cast performances to be as good as they are. There are lots of long, uninterrupted takes where the cast is free to move around the setting. Doing this allows for their performances to carry the weight of the scene. At times, it feels like we're eavesdropping on something we know we shouldn't be listening to, but we can't help it. Lots of people have also noted that this film has a documentary feel to it. I think there are moments like that, but for the most part, it still feels like a polished product. However, the film's look does have a realism that was missing from other movies at the time. At a glance, you might think that this film was shot on location, but it was actually shot at Universal Studios, even the exterior scenes. I think the reason this film evokes a more realistic aura is due to Lupino's style. She doesn't try to replicate the Hollywood look. Scenes where Forrest is all dressed up to go out have a more minimalist taste to them. She looks less like an actress and more like an average girl, something that aids the film tremendously. Even most of the sets are basic. There's a plain look to them that makes them feel like they're still in the process of being decorated. No one moves in, decorates their house, and then it's done forever. It evolves over time, and that's how all this feels. Well, except for the model train set. That's the one that's riddled with detail, and it's pretty neat to look at, but like I said before, the performances of the film are the highlight. Penn does a good job as the musician. He does play into the tortured artist archetype, but not so much that it's painful to watch. Interestingly, Penn is the father of musician Michael Penn and actors Chris and Sean Penn. Yeah, and I can see the resemblance. Keefe Brasselle brings a playful naivete that makes their romance interesting. You can tell he's never felt this way before with anyone, so he can't help but talk his head off. Although Forrest is on guard for most of their interactions, her previous experience allows her to figure out what she really needs in a relationship. Penn was suave and different, but Brasselle is tender and giddy. However, the standout performance is from Sally Forrest. She does a fantastic job conveying the internal struggle her character goes through. You always get a sense that there's something on her mind that she needs to say, but she's too worried about the judgment that will come. It helps to emphasize the despair and loneliness she feels. Even in spaces where she's surrounded by people, you always get a sense that she's lonely. This is all due to Forrest's demeanor, and you're with her every step of the way. Sally Forrest was born May 28, 1928, in San Diego, California. Her background was in dancing, which helped her secure her first jobs in Hollywood. She spent most of the 40s as a chorus girl in MGM musicals. This film was her big break and her first leading role. Lupino enjoyed working with her so much that she asked Forrest to come back for 2 subsequent films, Never Fear and Hard, Fast, and Beautiful. Forrest had a steady output of films throughout the late 40s and early 50s, but by the mid-1950s, she found herself more attracted to working in theater rather than film. She was even part of the original run of The 7-Year Itch. She replaced the actress playing the girl. Sources disagree on which actress she took over for, but she was in it nonetheless. She focused so much on her theater career that she would star in her last film in 1956. Funny enough, one of her last films was While the City Sleeps, which also starred Ida Lupino. She acted in many TV programs in the 50s and 60s, but by the 70s, she seemed to have settled down with her husband Milo Frank. They were married from 1951 all the way to Frank's death in 2004. Sally Forrest would pass away on March 15, 2015. She was 86 years old, leaving behind a small but strong catalog of performances. So if you want to see a daring social drama from the golden age of Hollywood, or want to discover one of the underutilized talents of Hollywood, then I highly recommend Not Wanted.